What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Mythology, the show where I get higher than the yeah, the show where I get higher than the heavenly goddess that we're talking about today, and we tell you guys silly stories from mythology and folklore. Today, we will be bringing you the follow-up to our Gilgamesh, as we had mentioned. The goddess, we're talking about the goddess Ishtar, also known as Inanna, who is pretty much, from what I've read, the first goddess.
Goddess of all.
Yeah, like there wasn't, Kachit, that's the first pantheon.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't a goddess before her. Yeah.
Sounds right.
Yeah. There wasn't a god before her either, which is a cool thing about the whole setup.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and since I'm the one talking, I'm just gonna go ahead and take it away, Dusty.
Okay.
Okay. You do
me.
that, fucker. So yeah, she started originally as Inanna, the first goddess, like I mentioned, back in Uruk, the city we talked about in the Gilgamesh episode, Gilgamesh's hometown, but that was in ancient Sumer. So it's ancient Sumer or Sumeria, the Sumerian people.
Old ass people.
The first civilization. And basically, she was one of their first important ones because she was the goddess of not only gardening, like tending to crops, she was also the goddess of food storage. When she started, it's an odd way to start, but for people who had been hunter-gatherers for, thousands of years.
I guess I follow under her. I mean,
yeah.
You've seen my freezer.
You've seen my freezer, yeah.
And a lot of fucking storage in there.
But yeah, for, coming from hunter-gatherers for thousands of years, this was the first real civilization. Mm-hmm. And it was all just because the area, Mesopotamia, was so fertile that things like wheat and dates and shit like that all just grew wild and plentiful. So people didn't have to go hunt and forage. They got there and they were like, oh my god, there's,
just like I don't have
everything
to go far
we
to get
need
cherries.
right here.
Like,
yeah.
There's a cherry tree out back.
Yeah. So the issue became then like, well, now we need some place to put all this food. And, so that's when cultivation of food and food storage became important things. And Inanna was the goddess they worshipped to take care of that. She was associated with Venus.
Please protect my garden.
Protect my garden and my food shed. Yeah. But yeah, she was associated with Venus, which would become a thing that would... that started back then, and some people even believe it possibly started as worship of Venus, that worship of the planet Venus, and it getting named after Inanna, that led to the goddess becoming a goddess, because, before the pantheon-style worship, it was all just plants, animals, and stars that people would worship. So there's belief that she actually was possibly worshipped before people even started worshiping gods. Back when it was just like the sacred cow and, the sacred rain, all that good shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, after that, she became associated with love, fertility, and war. And they associated war because of the fact that thunderstorms bring crops.
Nice.
So the idea that was,
and
was
grasshoppers.
in grasshoppers. The idea was that if you're the goddess of fertility, if you make the plants grow, it's because you also control the storm. So obviously you're the fucking god of war also.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. And
Why not?
back then too, their pantheons were pretty equal. She was equal to all of the male gods. There were a lot more female deities than you get later on. Yeah, it was kind of crazy how their gods and goddesses were even.
See, Joss Whedon?
See,
Fucking sexist pig.
Yeah. But yeah, so she started as a goddess of gardening, and then eventually grew to become the queen of heaven.
Fuck
So
yeah.
that's her progression
Fuck yes.
in ancient Sumeria. Yeah, she first evidence of worship of Inanna or Ishtar is around 4000 BC. So
Mm.
that is fucking before anyone was doing anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone else was just like
That's before
chasing
Egyptian
bulls.
even.
Yeah, yeah. Which will be important later on in the story.
Mm.
Dun, dun, dun. But yeah, that's when she came into what became one of my favorite aspects of the goddess, of course, because I'm a pig of a man. The goddess of not only love and not only fertility, but the goddess of physical love. She was the goddess of fucking. Just
Nothing wrong
straight
with
up.
that.
Nothing wrong with
It's
that.
been
Yeah.
around for thousands of years.
Yeah, and they got some pretty hot and heavy stuff in those Sumerian tablets. Also about they weren't shy when they would talk about like Ishtar loving a man. It would be like, no, and then she took him and rode him reverse cowgirl, flipped it over, did that, did this, finger in
She
his
invented
butt.
the shocker.
Yeah.
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 There's nothing wrong with that. Shit. It's
Yeah.
been around, like I said, it's been
No,
around
yeah,
forever.
and the interesting thing too that you kind of see from the story of Ishtar and Inanna and the whole progression was that dudes at some point decided that sex was bad and started punishing women for it. Because in the OG stories, like even in Gilgamesh that we did the other day, the prostitute was a character, and she wasn't just like, it wasn't just like, oh, some seedy prostitute. It's like, no, she's a prostitute. We love her. She's highly regarded in her field. It's a professional field. Like people loved and supported prostitutes, and
They still do.
yeah, and that's why they say the first profession because it's
The
literally literally the only profession that they mention in the first fucking story. No one else is
Yeah.
working. They're all just doing action.
You're a
Well, I guess
prostitute, you could be a farmer.
or a shepherd,
Or a
according to
hunter,
the or a gatherer.
gatherer, masonry. Somebody built those walls.
Yep, somebody had to.
Guess what? He didn't have a wife to go home to. So you know where he stood?
The prostitutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone's got to make their money. World goes round, economy keeps going.
Work. Yeah,
Exactly.
we're what keeps the world going.
You release vagina.
It's vagina makes the world go round.
It controls a lot.
But yeah, one of the quotes that I liked that was pretty much translated directly for it was that she could bring 1,000 men to climax and make them collapse of exhaustion and still not be done and still not be satisfied.
That's a power woman for you
Yeah.
right there.
It's like, where's 1001? Come on. Where's it at?
It's going to take at least 1 million for her.
Yeah. Yeah, she also became the patron goddess of prostitutes and bar patrons. So bartenders, anyone who worked at taverns or went to taverns regularly, she was your like patron god. She was the god that you would ask, like, if you're too drunk and you're walking out of the bar at 1 a.m. and you're like, God damn. Okay, Inanna, please let me stumble home safely.
Please don't let me find Gilgamesh.
You know what?
Beat the shit out of me.
If you hear a prostitute praying for a job, maybe just make me stumble her way. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, she got being the love goddess that she was. She had multiple marriages.
Why not?
Yeah. But the problem was with every marriage was she was not, she's not a monogamy kind of person.
Oh, she's got bipolarism.
Well, she's she just likes to fuck.
Love and war.
Love and war. I guess so, yeah. But I mean, really, when it would come,
first bipolar goddess.
Yeah.
Hey.
When it would come to it, the scenario would basically be she would marry someone, wear them out, And they're still alive and everything. They're just like, God, I need a break, Ishtar. And she'd be like, okay.
Guess we get it.
So I was thinking about fucking the farmer instead of the shepherd. But I'm married to the farmer. Turn the farmer into a goat and then I'll go bang the shepherd. Okay, I'm done banging the shepherd. I want to go bang this other dude. Turn the shepherd into a sheep. Now I'm out of that marriage.
Wow.
But the most famous of all of her marriages would be her marriage to the sun god. Let's see, I wrote his name.
Not Shamash.
Not Shamash.
That's her brother, guys. Don't be sick.
Yeah, I do think
she's
they
not
fucked,
a Lannister.
Though. I mean, I'm pretty sure they totally... Because there is talk of her and Shamash doing some stuff too. Shamash. Yeah. But anyway, her husband, Tammuz, the two of them got married in October. And it was because she had basically been getting pressured to get married again. She needed to find a husband and all that. For some fucking reason. And she decided to marry the sun god, Tammuz. And they had a huge wedding in October. And then they had a huge sex party at the end of their wedding, which was so good that it caused the trees to all grow fruit. It was said before that none of the trees grew fruit. And they banged so hard that every October the trees would grow fruit. So that became the new thing where they would even have their priests for thousands of years after the priest of the Temple of Ishtar. They would have big prostitute parties and orgies on October to celebrate her wedding day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. Eventually, she again got tired of her husband, Tammuz. Yeah, she got a little bored with him. But he was God. So she couldn't just poof, you're a sheep now. So she tricked him into going into the underworld. And basically, due to some stuff she had already done in the underworld, she had a way to just basically sub him out and make him go to the underworld. And so the sun got dim, and the seasons got cold, and eventually his sister got together, or came to Ishtar, and she was pissed about it. And she made Ishtar go with her back down to the underworld, where she offered to take her brother's place for half the year. And so that's how they explain the cycle of seasons. Half the year the sun god has to go into the underworld, so the sun is dimmer. It puts off less heat. And it's also where the myth of Persephone came from, but it just got the Greek myth, but it just got switcherooed around to become Persephone instead of the man. And the difference is there wasn't a guy in Hades that was just trying to bang that was any part of it. It was just literally like
her sister was the queen.
Yeah, her sister was the queen, which was another cool thing because
why not?
Goddess power. Yeah, that's what Inanna is all about. Yeah. After that, there's the part in Gilgamesh, which if you haven't listened to our Gilgamesh episode, check it out. I'm not going to go in depth, but she tried to marry Gilgamesh and then it didn't work out for her. And he got mad. Yeah. There's a later myth from the Uruk where she took on the powers of An, Enlil, and Enki and became the most powerful god of them all and became known as the Queen of the Universe.
Girl power.
Yeah, woo. Girl power. Woo!
Don't worry, it's not no Jessica Jones shit. They're just one woman. Power.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes she did take it from other women too, but Gotta fight that patriarchy, ladies.
We're working on it. We still have sexist pigs holding us behind.
I'm right here.
You.
Jokes. There was another myth where she married, or did marry a gardener, but a gardener raped her.
Ooh. With a rake.
Oh, he just had sex with her while she was sleeping, and then tried to get away. And yeah, she had him torn apart in the sky. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. She wasn't into that, but that was relevant because she also had a little tree of life thing that she did where she got a magic tree and planted it, and then it grew into a tree that bore fruit that contained all the knowledge of the world.
Hey.
And then a serpent came out of the tree too, who was a female serpent.
Well, aren't all snakes female?
I don't know snake math.
Aren't all reptiles?
No.
Or is it just geckos?
It might just be geckos. Yeah. But anyway, the snake came out and tried to tempt her to eat all the fruit, and I believe she did. Nothing really bad came of it. It wasn't divine sin, but they do think that serpent was the later basis for the Adam and Eve, the Tree of Life, the Garden of Eden, all of that, and Lilith was basically what they derived the snake from.
Interesting.
Yeah, because all of this went on to later perpetrate into different mythologies, which a lot of that you'll see is like everyone was copying. Yeah, yeah. And one book really copied a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, from Uruk, she went to Babylon, and that's where we get the name switch to Ishtar from Inanna. Is when Babylon took over, when the Akkadian Empire took over the old Sumerian Empire, and they changed some stuff, but she was one of the 7 divine deities that ruled over all creation, which is what they called like their top tier of the pantheon. And the cool thing about that was that's another thing that went on to perpetrate or permeate all throughout other mythologies, was having like these 7 divine deities that rule over everything, or a group of divine deities that rule over the lesser deities. And a lot of times at least one of the deities would have some basis on her.
I see.
Yeah. Yeah, like I was saying before, the men and women were completely equal in their old culture and in their pantheons. Like the gods and goddesses were
even. Guys.
They were even. Yeah.
Believe it.
Yeah.
Until some asshole came along and fucking
until a dude named Hammurabi of Babylon came along.
Fuck you, dude.
Right around 2000 BC. A little short of 2000 BC. But he came down and he basically, through his reign, shuffled it around and cut out most of the goddesses and made it so, basically created the patriarchy. So you can thank fucking Hammurabi for that.
Piece of shit.
Yeah, don't blame me. Blame Hammurabi.
He burns in hell.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. Pazuzu's all up in his ass right now. But yeah, he made the whole switch to where it was the men leading the women in the pantheons. Yeah, changed the view of prostitution. It was still legal, and it still went on forever, but that was kind of the beginning of the change. Like
now it's frowned
there
upon.
to be frowned upon, and then
girls just can't make a living.
Yeah, basically he even gender swapped a bunch of the Sumerian gods. So he took goddesses
didn't even have a fucking gender.
and basically just put those big ass ancient Sumerian beards on them.
Wow.
Yeah, Who was that ruled the underworld? What was his name? It was a woman. I said, what the fuck was his name? Okay, we'll throw a beard on him, dude. We'll throw a beard.
Call him Hades, I guess.
Yeah, call him Hades. But Ishtar somehow made the cut. And in addition to that, she basically gained more attributes after the big culling of the other gods and goddesses, because she took a lot of the attributes from gods that were erased and they just blended them in and pushed them into Ishtar. And so she was able to survive the big cut and come out the other side of it with basically, all these new god powers from different gods and certain different views of her.
Dope.
Like a motherly view. There was one like motherly view that came out of it, out of some other god she took in.
You gotta fucking take that
on.
I
You gotta be a mom if you're gonna succeed in the man's world.
I guess so.
I guess so. But as the people spread out from ancient Mesopotamia, so too did the myth of Ishtar. Basically, she went to Egypt first. That was one of the first like spread offs of her. She's believed to be the inspiration for Isis in Egypt.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And in Greece, she became two goddesses. Aphrodite took her persona, but then her warrior side, her goddess of war style side, that became Artemis.
Artemis, not Athena?
Not Athena. Yeah, I was surprised by that too. I would have totally thought
Artemis
Athena
is a badass, but she's also a virgin, so that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's said. Like I said, at some point there was a virgin attribute that got
thrown in there somehow.
That gets thrown in occasionally when it's the opposite.
How could there be any more virgins
this girl
after
fucks.
fucking Gilgamesh came through?
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
they don't exist. They're
this girl
rare.
fucks. Yeah. Let's see. In the Semitic region, this is where it gets kind of interesting too. In the Semitic region, she became Astarte, the Queen of Heaven. People would celebrate Astarte on a special day in spring, and it was to symbolize the 3-day trip that she took to the underworld to bring back her husband and trade out the sister.
Of course, she's got to go down there and get him. Of course.
Yeah, from the
Ishtar. On the way back.
Yeah.
Drive yourself, bitch.
Yeah, drive yourself. Why can't you just walk back from the underworld? Can't I just send your sister down with a note? Yeah. But to celebrate this, there were cakes, decorative, big, sweet cakes that people would bake.
Wedding cakes now.
And they would decorate eggs. They would paint the outside of eggs. And the festival, named after the goddess, was called Astarte at first, later Ostara, and then later on, Easter, which all came from Ishtar. Yeah.
It's all fucking weird.
Yeah, it's
where do they get the connections? It's like fucking ancient aliens, man.
Yeah.
Where do you get the connections?
Oh God. Okay, so if you're gonna do any research on Ishtar, I'm gonna warn you. Anytime you try to look too deeply into Sumerian stuff, you get flooded with bullshit about ancient aliens. It's almost impossible to find real history these days. Like, what do you know about Ishtar? What I know about Ishtar was she was a shape-shifting reptile Anunnaki from the future that came back through a second dimension hole. That's not what I asked.
No.
Yeah. But basically her character has still permeated. I did hear an argument that someone was trying to make that she was a basis for the Virgin Mary. But that was pretty
far-stretched.
Loose at best.
She's loose.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at
you
best.
You can't give a virgin looseness. At one point, she took on 1,000 men, you said.
On the
It's gotta
reg,
be
it
loose.
sounded like they were just saying it like, nah, it's like, she's not done yet. It's just a
Ugh.
Tuesday for Ishtar.
Shit.
Yeah. Yeah. But, yep, that's been the story of Ishtar. There's a ton more little side stories and writings out there. So if you are super interested in Ishtar, I would suggest looking up Ishtar and Tammuz, the book or audiobook. It's another one of those ancient Sumerian situation cuneiform tablet actions. And that'll tell you the whole story of her going to the underworld. Way more in depth than I will. Way more in depth. Yeah. Other than that, my sources, the Ishtar and Tammuz.
I see.
The last tablet of the Epic of Gilgamesh and the rest of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Britannica.eu. Always checking up on that Britannica action. Because, I like encyclopedias.
You also did the New World Encyclopedia.org.
Oh, yeah. NewWorldEncyclopedia.org, too. They had some information. I clicked on it. Evidence! Busted. Yeah. So, yeah. Hope you folks enjoyed this little action here, this little story here. We're gonna... I don't know what we're doing next, to be completely honest with you.
I'm working on something.
We've got a couple things in the works, but, I don't know what's going to tumble down the pipe first.
Yeah, I'm pretty slow at writing these days.
So
Sorry.
give us a shout out if you've got any ideas, and we will do the research and put it on the show, and probably give you a shout out because we're cool like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he is. Not really.
Yeah.
Me. Sorry. I'm pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Like, share, subscribe, comment.
Let us know what you think.
Notify.
Share it with your friends. Ring a bell. Ring a bell somewhere.
Yeah.
There's bells all over the place.
But
Ring
definitely
them all.
share.
Yeah.
Just keep sharing.
Get it out there to the world.
Keep pushing.
Get it out there.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.